Hello again, class. In this section of our lab school, we're going to talk about solving equations with multiple steps. So whenever you're solving an equation, obviously the rules still apply. We're trying to isolate the variable, which means get the variable by itself on one side of the equation by undoing the mathematics, doing the opposite of what's there. I'd like you to look at this equation, and I'd like you to try to think of the reason why this equation looks different than before. What problem might you run into if you try to solve this equation? Pause the video and think about that for a second and write your answer down on a piece of paper. Okay, so what you probably identified when you're trying to solve this equation is that you have two different x's. You have a 3x and a minus 5x. So how could you possibly get the x all by itself on one side? Well, this is where one of the skills from last unit comes into play. When we were dealing with expressions, we learned how to simplify expressions. There were two ways that we simplified expressions. The first was the distributive property. The second was combining like terms. Whenever you see like terms in an equation or an expression, you can combine them. You can add them or subtract them depending on what the sign is. So I'd like you to identify in this problem, what are the like terms? Pause the video and point to them. Okay, so you should have identified 3x and minus 5x as your like terms. That's exactly right. So if I combine them in this situation, we have 3x minus 5x. That's going to give us negative 2x. Now, just like before when we were doing two-step equations, we're going to regroup our problem. Don't try to do the entire thing at one time. It can be way too confusing, especially when we add in more complexity and more complexity. So I'm going to regroup my problem. Everything that I didn't touch just comes down into my new equation. So I have negative 2x. I didn't touch the plus 5, so we just write it in, plus 5. I simplified the minus 5x, so that's gone, and now I have equals 17. And now you might have noticed, hey, this is just a two-step equation, and I can do that easily, which, yes, you can. So now we pick on the lonely number. We have a plus 5. Instead of plus 5, we minus 5 from both sides, and then we have a minus 2x left over on the left side, and on the right side, we have 12. And finally, to get rid of that negative 2 times x, we will divide by negative 2 on both sides. So my answer when we're all said and done, x equals negative 6. And again, we can check that answer. I just want to show you that you can check this answer. Even though the problem is a little bit more complex, we can check this answer. So all I'm going to do is take my answer, negative 6. Everywhere I see x, I plug it in. So I have 3 times x. Instead of x, we have negative 6. Then I've got a negative 5 times x. Instead of x, I put in negative 6. And if we simplify this math, 3 times negative 6 is negative 18. Negative 5 times negative 6 is positive 30. Negative 18 plus 5 is negative 13. And you notice I'm doing one step at a time. I'm not trying to do it all at once, just one thing at a time. Regroup. Negative 13 plus 30 is in fact 17. So my equation is balanced. The left side does still equal the right side. In this next problem, we'll see again. This is a more complex problem than it was before when we were doing two-step equations. The multi-step equation, and you always have to simplify your equation first. So just make it easier to look at. That's what simplify means. And remember, there's always two ways to simplify. Distribute, combine like terms. In this problem, I'd like you to think to yourself for a second, what can you do to simplify? Okay, so what you should have said is distribute. All right, so we can distribute. We have 3 times a set of parentheses. So we're going to take that 3 and we're going to multiply everything inside the parentheses times 3. So 3 times 2x is 6x. 3 times 5 is positive 15. and then everything I didn't touch comes down into my new equation. All right, so we have 6x plus 15 equals 30, and guess what? We have a regular two-step equation from here. I'd like you to pause the video and go ahead and try to solve it yourself. Okay, so our next step, if we're picking on the lonely numbers, is to get rid of that positive 15. So to get rid of the positive 15, or my positive plus 15, I subtract 15 from both sides of the equation. So we have 6x equals 15, and then we have 6x, so we're going to divide by 6 on both sides of the equation. And x equals 15 divided by 6 is 2.5. So in conclusion, when you're solving equations, you are going to isolate the variable by undoing the mathematics, doing the opposite operations. And to start, you always want to simplify. I want you to tell me in your head right now, what are the two ways to simplify? Right. Distribute and combine like terms. Simplify first, and then it will be easy from there.